This is not going to be a prolonged conflict. We are achieving all those objectives. We are ahead of schedule on most of them, and we can achieve them without any ground troops, without any.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. can achieve its goals without boots on the ground, but 3,500 sailors and Marines arrived in the region this weekend aboard the USS Tripoli, and the USS Boxer is carrying more than 2,000 Marines, and it is on its way. For more, let's bring in Army Special Forces veteran and World Strat President Jim Hanson. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Really appreciate it. So we are inside this 10-day pause that the president enacted on, his threat to take out Iran's energy plants to allow more time for talks. He said after the first iteration of talks, he knew that the U.S. was talking to the right people when the Iranians let 10 ships through the Strait of Hormuz. And then early this morning, you had Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, serving as a negotiator, post this: "I'm pleased to share great news that the government of Iran has agreed to allow 20 more ships under the Pakistani flag to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. 2 ships will cross the strait daily." Do you take that as a sign that Iran really does want a deal, or is this, self-serving since they want to generate their own revenue as well?
We'll take baby steps. But I think overall, they need to realize that this is a way for Iran to try to maintain control over the entire conflict by stopping anything from leaving, the region out through the Strait of Hormuz. So one way or another, this was a known problem that was going to come up at some point during this. We have to figure out how to stop them from either acting like they get to collect tolls or any of the other things they're trying to do. And that's the remaining major obstacle, other than the uranium we need to get.
There are a lot of signs. Obviously, the president's making a dual approach. He's carrying out these negotiations while also building up the troops in the Middle East. CENTCOM said the USS Tripoli, which had 3,500 service members on board, got there yesterday. You have the USS Boxer en route. Last night, the president also teased Mark Levin's show, which made a defense of the idea of sending in ground troops. And then he posted an article from Mark Thiessen. The headline on that is, "No, Trump is not losing his nerve on Iran." Does that signal to you that this buildup is maybe more than a negotiating tactic?
Rule number one with President Trump, he's good at the information game. So nobody knows on the other side whether this is a threat, whether it's a negotiating position, or whether he would actually put troops on the ground, whether you seize Karg Island, whether you potentially sweep the crescent of land above the strait and try to take out all the missile launchers and everything there. The problem is when you get troops on the ground, they don't come with a lot of air defense. So the things that we're having problems with now, they would be a target for the Iranians. So you don't want to do it. It's a last case scenario, and it was never the intention. But you have to look at what's the goal. The final goal has to be removing the nuclear capability and making sure trade doesn't get stifled in the thing. So one way or another, he's going to use whatever force is necessary.
The Washington Post put this out today. Pentagon prepares for weeks of ground operations in Iran. That's the headline. If President Donald Trump approves the plan, such an effort would mark a new phase of the war that could be significantly more dangerous to U.S. troops than the first 4 weeks. The buildup that we are seeing obviously is nothing close to what it would take for a ground invasion. This looks more like a precision strike group, so to speak. But what could these ground operations look like? And in your opinion, does it have to be the U.S. that goes in and does it, or could the Israelis?
The Israelis almost certainly have people on the ground. Mossad, and probably there are, our own little covert operators doing their things. But one of the main things we have to get is the enriched uranium. They either have to give that up, or maybe we go get it. It's a hellish concept to think we have to go underground and try to grab that stuff and leave. But that's one of the potential missions for those guys. As I mentioned, they could clear out the islands, including Karg and the other ones that the UAE lost in conflict with Iran. And that's where they run a lot of their speedboats and the other things out of. So that's another potential mission. And as I mentioned, the crescent above. So there are places where those troops could go. I think they are much better as a threat. But in this situation, President Trump has to finish the job. He wants to get out of kinetic operations soon. If he has to use ground troops to finish that, that's not a red line for us.
So how do you read it when Marco Rubio says we can get all this done without troops on the ground? Do you take that as, yeah, this can be done if Iran hands over the uranium? Or is he referring to something else? Is there some way that our allies could get this done that he's talking about?
I think if you look at the number of countries now that have signed on to the deal to go ahead and clear the straits, who recognize, the Europeans now recognize, oh, those missiles can reach our capitals. Our oil that we get from there is a problem. We need to take care of that. So I think there are ways to use international pressure, diplomatic, economic, and other things in conjunction with the kinetic strength and the threats that are right there and ready to operate to do this. And I think that's what Secretary Rubio is talking about.
Do you have any concern about the rate at which the Pentagon is firing Tomahawks? There was an article that said that the U.S. military fired 850 cruise missiles in the first 4 weeks, and that raised some eyebrows at the Pentagon. Do those numbers startle you?
Well, the nice thing about it is the cruise missiles and the other things that we used immediately cleared out the air defenses. So now we can use other munitions, which we have a ton more of. So we've got a lot of laser-guided bombs and other things like that now we're flying B-52s and B-2s and basically dropping wherever we want. So air superiority makes that slightly less of a problem. It's a concern, but people act like somehow Iran's stores of the munitions they're shooting are unlimited. They're not. So those have tailed off, and we're in a position now where we control who does what. And I think President Trump's taking the initiative.
Final question, big picture. This morning you had the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen attacking Israel for the first time. There are reports now that Russia has not just been providing intelligence to the Iranians, but also drones, including drones that were upgraded over the course of its war in Ukraine to have better navigation capabilities. How big of a problem is that?
It's a huge geostrategic problem because now you've got, and China has been involved doing things with them as far as military and other things. We can't have the other semi-great powers inflicting damage to something that President Trump and the free world have decided is a priority. So he'll be dealing with that diplomatically and with other types of pressure. We've got a lot of levers we can use to make those guys stop messing with our effort to make the Middle East more secure and prosperous.
All right, it's all the time we have. Jim Hanson, thank you very much for your service and for joining us in the Sunday Briefing. Thank you.
Good to be with you.
You as well.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.